At the beginning of 2021, the country was still gripped with worry about COVID, the developing Delta strain, getting enough of the vaccines, different lockdown strategies across the states, and government support.
The JobKeeper payment was always meant to be a targeted and a temporary payment. Initially it was for 6 months, Ross. We extended it for another 6 months, and at its peak it was supporting 3.6 million Australian workers and around 1 million businesses.
The Delta strain and rolling lockdowns created tension for business owners. Many wondered if they would survive.
Our industry, we've just been smashed again, and we've got a staff shortage, and our industry is in crisis.
I think, and I still think, probably 20 to 30% of restaurants, cafes, wine bars, especially in this CBD area of every capital city, will close.
There was also alarm at the start of the year about vaccine supplies and spending on preventative health care.
Poor health definitely has an impact in terms of outcomes during a pandemic. So preventative agenda and preventative investment in Australians and around the world is critically important.
Once vaccine supplies lifted, the next big question was whether workers could be forced to take them. Fruit preserving business SPC took the first big step to mandate vaccination.
What prompted us to do this decision is the speed by which the Delta variant is going. So we started the consultation process, but we don't have the luxury of time.
The federal government was adamant, though, it would encourage, not mandate vaccination.
Well, the position of the government is that this is a decision for each individual employer, depending on their circumstances.
Big employers, including Qantas, the banks, Woolworths, Coles and Wesfarmers, eventually came to the same decision.
If you have exemptions, medical reasons why you can't get the vaccine, we'll accommodate them. But for the rest of the people that decide not to take it, I think aviation is not the industry for them.
Once out of lockdown, it was clear the economy was rebounding fast. But then came another problem: supply shortages, often caused by COVID outbreaks.
We cannot afford to have these people, be they pilots, be they marine surveyors, be they stevedores, be they truck drivers, people working in logistics parks inland. We cannot have them falling prey to this virus.
The shortage means the lead times to make anything that requires a computer chip have blown out right across the world.
While chips were in short supply, there was certainly plenty of lobsters as our relationship with China deteriorated.
Rock lobster fishermen like Kane and Ian are extremely worried about the situation ahead. Come November, it will be peak catching season, not just here in Tasmania, but all over the country, meaning the market is going to be absolutely saturated.
But workers also were in short supply. Business reported rising wages because of a lack of workers, skilled and unskilled.
The challenge for Cav and other members of the industry is recruitment. Young people aren't as interested in doing these jobs anymore.
We've lost 26 chefs back to their homeland, and we're just really struggling to find replacements, Australian born and trained, to take those places.
This pressure meant inflation re-emerged. For the first time in more than a decade, money market interest rates started to rise. And with the rising use of cryptocurrencies, some even suggested central banks like our Reserve Bank could lose control of the money supply.
We are watching Ethereum rise as a genuinely reserve currency for the world in the way that gold was for 500 years before the end of the First World War.
But inflation was also fueled by rising energy prices. Oil quadrupled to more than $80 US a barrel in 18 months. All hydrocarbons, including coal, soared, just as the world decided to reduce their usage.
You can't rapidly get rid of the coal-fired power stations. I think I was quoted once before at a Credit Suisse panel as a bug of the country. I mean, the business and jobs need 24/7 power.
But the promise of a lower carbon future is creating a new wave of entrepreneurialism.
So a 350 kilowatt charger gives you 350 kilometres of range in about 10 minutes.
Which in turn sparked the talk of Australia's hydrogen boom and the suggestion it could in future become one of our biggest export earners.
Basically, we take hydrogen gas that's made from water, renewable energy preferably. It goes into the fuel cell stack, it's converted back into water, which comes out the exhaust, and it also converts into electricity, which powers the vehicle. So they're a zero-emission vehicle that actually purifies the air and creates water as they drive.
But the nirvana around hydrogen is to replace coal in the centuries-old recipe to make steel.
The chemical reaction of reducing iron produces greenhouse gases, and there's no technology that's commercially viable or available right now that allows us to produce steel via the blast furnace route without producing carbon.
But steel and its price, though, is vital to build infrastructure and bigger cities for more population in the future.
Our projects have been getting bigger and bigger over the years, and probably for the last 20 years we've been concentrating on this massive urban renewal.
And for housing, where prices have risen more than 21% this year, the industry's message to government was pretty simple: get out of the way and let us build.
We have to continuously move forward. We can't stop and start. Today you have migrants, tomorrow you don't have students. We need them all. And this is the way to build the country, then we all know where we stand.
But COVID and working from home changed our behaviour about how we view work.
We're not returning to working in the same way that we did prior to March 2020. And people have now become used to the value of their time.
And it's not only work that changed, but also our shopping habits.
We saw this real rise with athleisure wear, and we saw a lot of kind of collaborations, I guess, between traditional kind of exercise wear and top designers, and that's been incredibly successful.
It was the shopping habits, though, of one chief executive at Australia Post that caused a much vexed inquiry for her and the government this year.
On the 2nd of November, she emailed the board around 10:30 or so in the morning saying I offer my resignation. She also issued a public statement shortly after 2 p.m.
But if that inquiry was difficult, it was worse for Crown. One regulatory inquiry, 2 royal commissions, a new chair, CEO, board and management. Its major shareholder, James Packer, ordered to sell down his stake, and 3 takeover offers, the latest just last week, worth $6.2 billion.
There's been huge change. And as we saw with the Banking Royal Commission a couple of years ago, these Royal Commissions do tend to highlight the shortcomings, and many organisations, such as the banks, change their CEO, change their chairman, and come out of them often stronger.
But it wasn't the biggest takeover, not by a long shot. There's the $39 billion offer for Afterpay by US payments company Square, the $40 billion merger of BHP's petroleum division with Woodside, the $17 billion takeover of Sydney Airport by a group of super funds, APA's almost $10 billion offer for energy network company AusNet. And there are surely more of those to come. Yes, it's been one hell of a year in business and in finance. Roll on 2022.